All right, today we are jumping into something that's, well, it's at the very heart of how we make sense of our world, how we connect with the past, and maybe most importantly, how we understand each other. We're talking about the art of interpretation. I mean, really think about it. Every single day, you are an interpreter, from decoding a friend's text message to figuring out a movie plot. But how do you actually do it? How do you get from just words on a screen or sounds in the air to that feeling of, I get it now? That's the huge question we're going to try and unpack today.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get a simple definition on the table. Then, we'll look at why people even started thinking about this stuff so formally. After that, we'll dive into a really fascinating, kind of mind-bending idea called the hermeneutic circle, figure out how to use it, and we'll end with a pretty profound choice that we all face whenever we try to understand anything at all.
So, first things first, what is this field with the, let's be honest, kind of intimidating name? Let's just break down what it means to understand something. Yep, that's literally it. At its core, hermeneutics is just the study of how we interpret things. It's the theory behind the practice of understanding. It sounds super academic, I know, but the goal is actually really straightforward, to figure out how meaning happens. Now, for most of history, there wasn't a formal system for interpretation. The need for one really only popped up when two things happened at once. First, getting the meaning right became incredibly high stakes, and second, figuring out that meaning got really, really difficult. And this need really took off in three big waves. First up was religion. During the Protestant Reformation, all of a sudden individuals had to read the Bible for themselves. The stakes were, eternal salvation. Then that same pressure expanded into law. With the rise of democracies, everyday citizens had to be able to interpret constitutions to even know what the rights were. And finally, with Romanticism, art and literature became this kind of secular scripture, where the new big goal was to understand the unique, subjective genius of the artist. Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core puzzle of hermeneutics. It's a concept that might feel a little weird at first, a bit of a mind-bender, but it perfectly describes what your brain does every single time you read. It's called the hermeneutic circle. So here's how it works. You can't understand the whole story without understanding the sentences, right? But you can't fully understand what a sentence means without having some idea of the whole story. It's a paradox. So what you do is you start with a part, you project an idea of the whole, then you read more parts that make you change your idea of the whole, and that, in turn, changes how you see those first parts you read. It's this constant circular conversation between the pieces and the big picture. The philosopher Hans-Georg Gadamer actually has a name for that first guess you make about the whole thing. He calls it a foreproject, which is really just a fancy way of saying a preconception. And here's the thing, you always start with one. You have to. It's the only way to even step into the circle of understanding. And this is where a huge objection comes up. If we can never get away from our own initial assumptions, how can we ever understand something objectively? Are we just stuck running around in circles, just confirming our own biases over and over again? Are we trapped? While Gadamer would say that the circle isn't necessarily a trap, the key isn't to somehow eliminate our preconceptions, which he says is totally impossible anyway, but to learn how to tell the difference between the ones that are helping us understand and the ones that are just getting in the way. Let's look at a really clear example of how this works. Check out this line from an 18th century poem. The great creator raised his plastic arm. Now just read that with your 21st century brain. What picture pops into your head? Okay, this right here is the perfect illustration of a good versus a bad prejudice. If you bring your modern idea of plastic as, a polymer, the line is just bizarre. A prosthetic arm? It makes no sense. But if you bring a good prejudice, which is the historical knowledge that back then plastic meant something like powerful and flexible, bam, the line just unlocks. One path leads to confusion, the other leads straight to understanding. So here's the big takeaway. The hermeneutic circle isn't a prison. It's a tool. The goal isn't to become a blank slate. That's not even possible. The key is to be aware of our own viewpoint, and then actively work to bring the right preconceptions to the table. Gadamer has this really beautiful way of putting it. He calls it merging horizons with the past. And all this leads us to one final, really profound question. Once we accept this whole process, what should our ultimate goal even be? And on this point, two major thinkers offer two very different and maybe even irreconcilable paths forward. So you've got two camps. On one side, you have Gadamer. He argues the goal of interpretation is truth. We should engage with the past to find something that is real and valuable for us today. But on the other side, you have E.D. Hirsch, and he argues the goal is meaning, that we have a moral obligation to try and reconstruct exactly what the author originally intended, out of respect for them as a person.
Gadamer's argument here is really powerful. He's saying that if you try to be perfectly objective and treat the past like it's just some dead thing under glass in a museum, then you basically silence it. You suspend its ability to teach you anything. It can never actually change you. But then, Hirsch's counter-argument is just as compelling. He pulls from the philosopher Kant and basically says that if you ignore what an author was trying to say, you're not treating them as a person. You're just using their words as a tool for your own purposes. And that is, in a very real way, unethical.
And that leaves us with a choice that every one of us has to make, whether we realize it or not. When you read a book, or watch a movie, or listen to a friend, what's your ultimate goal? Is it to perfectly reconstruct their intended meaning? Or is it to find a powerful truth that speaks to your own life? There may not be a single right answer, but just knowing that you're asking the question, well, that's the first step in the real art of understanding.